Welcome to Tales by Felix, where every story unlocks a new world. Remember to subscribe, like and share. Let's begin. The evening sky over Port Harcourt burned orange, the last light of the sun melting into the deep blue of night. The air was heavy with humidity, thick enough to taste, and carried the sweet perfume of mango blossoms from the grove behind the house. Cicadas sang their endless chorus, and in the soft shadows of the garden, Chidinma lay sprawled on the rattan bench, her head resting on her husband's lap. Obi's palm rested protectively on her rounded belly, fingers tracing small circles, as though memorizing every curve. "You've grown, Kem," he murmured with a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. She rolled her eyes playfully. "It's your son eating like he's paying rent in here." Obi laughed, a deep warm sound that vibrated through her. Then his tone shifted, becoming quieter, more deliberate. "Our child will never know the bitterness of this family's squabbles." The statement hung in the air between them. Chidinma tilted her head to look at him, her gaze searching. "You've been saying that a lot lately. What are you not telling me?" Obi sighed and reached into the breast pocket of his linen shirt. He pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn at the edges from being handled too many times. "I've written it all down. The plans, our future. Everything separate from them. I'm filing it tomorrow. No more dependence on the family business. No more Madame Ifioma breathing down our necks about how we raise our child." Chidinma stared at the paper like it was a talisman. "Do you really think they'll let you go without a fight?" "They'll have no choice," Obi said firmly, his eyes blazing with that stubborn resolve she had fallen in love with. "I've made investments under my name, Nkem. Land, shares, enough to secure you and the baby. We'll be free." For a moment, the world felt perfect, just the two of them beneath the mango tree, the distant hum of city life, the scent of blossoms, the coolness of night pressing in. But neither of them knew that this night, this whispered promise under the Nigerian sky, would soon become a memory Chidinma would cling to in the darkest days ahead. The night cracked open with a shrill cry of Chidinma's phone. She jolted awake, heart racing. The bedside clock glowed 12:47 a.m. She fumbled for the phone. "Hello, Madam Chidinma?" The voice on the other end trembled. It's Chaik from the office." Her mouth went dry. "Chaik? What's wrong?" A sharp inhale. Then the words tumbled out, heavy and final. "It's Oga Obi. There was an accident. Just outside Elim. He didn't make it." The room spun. She gripped the bedsheet, her knuckles white. No, you're mistaken. Obi was coming back from... Her words collapsed into sobs. Chaik's voice broke. "I'm so sorry, madam. The police are here. They said his car." She hung up before he could finish. Her body curled protectively around her belly, tears spilling freely. In the distance, the rain began, a soft patter that quickly became a relentless drumming, as if the heavens themselves were weeping. The whispered promise beneath the mango tree dissolved into the muggy night. 2 days later, still reeling from grief, Chidinma stepped through the wrought iron gates of the sprawling family estate in GRA. The air here smelled different, sharp with manicured grass and the faint chemical bite of chlorine from the swimming pool. She expected open arms, a shared morning. Instead, she was met with a carefully arranged tableau of politeness. Madame Ifioma stood at the top of the marble steps, draped in a black lace wrapper, her headscarf tied immaculately. She stepped forward, her face frozen in an expression of strained sorrow. "My daughter," she said flatly, pulling Chidinma into a brief hug that felt like a dismissal. "Thank you, Mama," Chidinma whispered, searching for warmth that wasn't there. From the corner of her eye, she saw Emeka, Obi's elder brother, standing stiffly, hands clasped behind his back. His gaze skimmed over her like she was a piece of furniture. "We'll discuss arrangements later," Madame Ifioma said, already turning away. That was it. No lingering embrace. No whispered words of comfort. Just formality. Inside, the photographs of Obi that had once captured their laughter together were gone, replaced with older images, family portraits that erased her existence. It was like walking into a museum where she'd been airbrushed out of history. Her grief deepened into something sharper. In the days that followed, Chidinma moved through the estate like a ghost in her own life. Discussions about funeral arrangements took place in whispered gatherings she was not invited to. One morning, she noticed that the framed photo of her and Obi laughing at their wedding, once proudly displayed in the living room, was gone. In its place was a stiff, formal family portrait taken years before she entered the picture. When she mentioned it to one of the house staff, the young maid looked down and muttered, "Madam said it didn't fit the setting." At night, she overheard fragments of conversations. "Keep her quiet. The child's future depends on. Don't let her meddle." It became painfully clear, they weren't just mourning Obi. They were erasing her, as if wiping her presence from his story could somehow rewrite the past. The morning of the funeral broke under a curtain of rain. Chidinma dressed slowly, her hands trembling as she tied her headscarf. She clutched her umbrella and stepped into the downpour, determined to say goodbye to her husband no matter what reception awaited her. The cathedral stood tall and solemn, its doors framed by black ribbons and wreaths. Mourners, dressed in somber attire, streamed inside, murmuring condolences. As Chidinma reached the steps, Emeka appeared, blocking her path. His suit was immaculate, his expression cold. "You can't go in yet," he said, pulling a folder from beneath his arm. "What are you talking about? This is my husband's funeral." He thrust a document toward her. "Sign this. A complete waiver. You renounce any claim to Obi's estate. You sign, you enter. If not..." Her voice shook with outrage. "You're keeping me from saying goodbye?" "You're pregnant," he said evenly. "Think of your child. Don't cause a scene." Around them, whispers rose. Faces turned toward the drama unfolding at the gates. Pity and curiosity mingled in their stares. Chidinma's grip on her umbrella tightened until her knuckles ached. The rain pelted her, soaking her dress, blurring her vision. She glanced at the paper, then at the coffin glimpsed through the cathedral doors. For a moment, she felt utterly alone, until the sound of tires cutting through water made her turn. A sleek black SUV pulled up. The tinted window rolled down, and a deep, measured voice cut through the rain. "Madam Chidinma," the man said, "this is no place for you. Let me take you somewhere safe." It was Barrister Adekunle, and his presence would change everything. Rainwater streamed down Chidinma's face as she stared at the man inside the sleek SUV. Barrister Adekunle's voice was calm, almost soothing, yet carried the weight of urgency. "Please," he said, leaning slightly toward her. "You can't win at these gates today." Her heart pounded. "This is my husband's funeral. I won't run away like a coward." His eyes softened. "And if you force your way in, they'll use it to destroy you in the court of public opinion before you've even had a chance to fight in a real court. Get in. I promise you, you'll have your day." Behind her, Emeka shifted impatiently. "Make your choice, Chidinma. Now." The stares from the mourners burned her skin. Somewhere inside the cathedral, the choir had started singing, "It is well with my soul," the irony twisting in her gut. Her umbrella sagged in her hand. With one last glance at the coffin through the open doors, she turned and slid into the SUV. The leather seat was warm, the air smelling faintly of cedar and mint. Barrister Adekunle nodded to the driver. "Let's go." As the cathedral faded into the rain, Chidinma pressed her hand to her belly, whispering to the child inside. "I'm sorry. I'll make it right." Adekunle's office sat above the Bonny River, its wide windows fogged with the dampness of the storm. Chidinma sat on a leather chair, her dress still clinging to her from the rain. He poured her a glass of water, then leaned against his desk, studying her like a man weighing a difficult case. "Before Obi died," Adekunle began, "he came to me with concerns. He believed someone inside his own company was moving against him. He suspected foul play." Chidinma blinked. "Foul play? In business?" "More than that. In life." Adekunle reached for a folder and slid it toward her. Inside was a grainy photograph, Emeka, standing in the shadows of a Port Harcourt hotel, shaking hands with a man whose face Chidinma recognized from the newspapers, Chief Olabode, a rival businessman infamous for hostile takeovers. Her breath caught. Why would Emeka meet with him? That's what I want to know. Obi was preparing to act, to protect you and the baby. He said you were the only one he trusted. Adekunle's voice lowered. But he died before he could finish. She stared at the photograph, her mind a whirlpool of grief and suspicion. Are you saying, what happened to him wasn't an accident? Adekunle didn't answer directly. Instead, he folded his arms. I'm saying the timing was convenient for someone. 2 days later, Adekunle called her back to the office. This time, his eyes held a glint of triumph. I found something, he said, tapping the sleek laptop on his desk. Obi's files. How? The family has everything, his devices, his office. Adekunle smiled faintly. Let's just say Obi had foresight. He encrypted his data and left me a key. I've been going through it. He opened a file, rows of figures, names, and transaction dates. This is a ledger. Money being siphoned from the company into offshore accounts. And look here, he pointed to a column of names. Chidinma's eyes widened. No, some of these people were at our wedding. They're supposed to be family friends. Friends who were getting rich behind Obi's back, Adekunle said grimly. This isn't just corporate theft. It's betrayal from within. She leaned back, the enormity of it pressing down on her. If Obi knew about this, he was a threat to them. And now, her voice cracked. Adekunle closed the laptop gently. Now, you're the only one left who can finish what he started. Word travels fast in Port Harcourt, especially in families where gossip is as much a currency as money. Chidinma was sipping tea in her small rented apartment when her phone rang. This is Ngozi, the voice on the line said without introduction. Obi's cousin. I think we need to meet. Half an hour later, Ngozi walked into the cafe like a storm contained in human form. Tall, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense manner, she wasted no time on pleasantries. They'll ruin you if you let them, she said, sitting down. That's what they do. You've dealt with them before? Ngozi's jaw tightened. My father was once part of their empire. He stood against their methods. They cut him out, destroyed his reputation, left us with nothing. Your husband was the only one who kept in touch with me. Chidinma frowned. Why are you helping me now? Because they've gone too far. And because... Ngozi's voice dropped, her eyes softening for the first time. Obi was like a brother to me. She pulled a small notebook from her bag. Here. Names, dates, things I've heard over the years. It might help. As Chidinma flipped through the pages, she realized Ngozi wasn't exaggerating. The rot in the family tree went deeper than she'd imagined. A week later, Adekunle called again, this time with urgency in his voice. Chidinma, you need to see this. Come now. When she arrived, he wasted no time. On his screen was a secure online vault. Obi left this here. It's an unofficial will, dated 3 days before his death. She leaned in, reading each word. It was all there, his intention to leave his personal estate to her and their unborn child, clearly separated from the family business. Tears blurred her vision. He was protecting us. Adekunle nodded. It's not legally binding yet, but in the right hands, with the right strategy, it could be enough to challenge them. It's his voice from beyond the grave. Ngozi, who had joined them, leaned against the desk. Then we fight. We make sure his wishes are honored, no matter how dirty they play. For the first time since Obi's death, Chidinma felt something more than grief. It was resolve, sharp and unyielding. She straightened her shoulders. Then let's begin. It started with the phone calls. The first one came late at night, just after Chidinma had put on her night wrapper. The voice on the other end was male, low, and deliberately slow. You should stop digging, Madam Widow. Curiosity kills more than cats. She hung up, her fingers trembling, but the calls kept coming, at odd hours, always from unknown numbers. Sometimes there was just breathing. Sometimes it was a whispered, "We know where you live." Then came the other signs, her doorbell ringing at midnight, no one there when she checked, a motorbike idling outside her flat for hours, gossip slipping into her churchwomen's group about how she was chasing money instead of mourning. One afternoon, as she and Ngozi left Adekunle's office, a black sedan slowed beside them. The rear window rolled down just enough for a voice to drift out. "You'll regret this," it said, and the car sped away. Ngozi muttered a curse. They're trying to scare you into silence. But that means we're close to something they don't want the world to see. Chidinma's hand went instinctively to her belly. The fear was real, but so was the thought of her child's future. She straightened her back. They can try to scare me, she said. But I won't stop. Adekunle had a knack for finding people who wanted to talk. This time, it was an ex-employee from Obi's company, Samson, a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a nervous habit of wringing his hands. They met in a discreet corner of a hotel lounge. Samson glanced around before speaking. Obi was pushing back against a takeover, one that his own brother was orchestrating, he said. He wanted to restructure, make the company independent from the family's grip. Emeka didn't like that. Chidinma leaned forward. Do you have proof? Samson shook his head. Not hard proof. But I saw the meetings. I heard the arguments. The last time I saw Obi alive, he told Emeka, if anything happens to me, you'll be the first suspect. 2 days later, he trailed off, his voice breaking. Adekunle's eyes sharpened. Would you testify to that in court? Samson hesitated. If you can guarantee my safety, maybe. Ngozi leaned in. We can protect you. But if you stay quiet, they'll keep doing this to people. Samson exhaled, as if releasing years of pent-up fear. All right. I'll talk. They didn't plan to confront the family so soon, but the mounting evidence demanded it. Adekunle arranged for a private meeting at the estate, though Chidinma suspected word would spread fast. Madame Ifeoma sat in the living room, her posture regal and cold. Emeka lounged on the sofa, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Adekunle began without preamble. We have records of financial theft from the company. Meetings with rivals. And we have testimony suggesting Obi's death was convenient. Emeka's laugh was short and sharp. You're reaching, barrister. All you have are stories. Chidinma stepped forward, her voice steady. We also have Obi's will. His real will. The one where he left everything to me and our child. For the first time, Emeka's glass paused mid-air. Madame Ifeoma's eyes narrowed. You're lying. Am I? Adekunle slid a printed copy onto the glass table. Dated 3 days before his death. Emeka's jaw tightened. You think you can come here and accuse us? You have no idea who you're dealing with. Ngozi's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Oh, we know exactly who we're dealing with. And we're not afraid. The silence that followed was thick and electric. Adekunle wasted no time. By the next week, he had filed a formal lawsuit challenging the family's control over Obi's estate and demanding an investigation into his death. The first hearing was set in the Port Harcourt High Court, and the media descended like vultures. Cameras flashed as Chidinma walked into the building, her bump visible under her tailored maternity dress. Ngozi walked beside her like a bodyguard, Adekunle flanking the other side. Inside, the opposing counsel, slick, expensive, and flanked by the family, moved to dismiss the case outright. This is an emotional claim, not a legal one, the family's lawyer argued. The so-called will is unofficial. It's meaningless. Adekunle countered with calm precision. It is evidence of intent, Your Honor, supported by financial records that suggest a motive for his death. This is not just about inheritance. It is about justice. The judge, a stern woman with intelligent eyes, raised a hand. We will proceed. Bring your evidence. And with that, the war officially began. Adekunle knew the key to winning was not just legal arguments but irrefutable facts. He called in a forensic accident reconstruction specialist, Dr. Hassan, who had spent 2 decades investigating road fatalities. In court, Dr. Hassan was methodical. I examined photographs from the scene, the damage to the car, and the police report. There are inconsistencies. What kind of inconsistencies? Adekunle prompted. The brake lines show signs of deliberate tampering. Not wear and tear, fresh cuts. The type you'd make if you wanted the car to fail within minutes of driving. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge leaned forward. Are you suggesting this was not an accident? I am saying, Dr. Hassan replied carefully, that it is highly unlikely the damage occurred naturally. Chidinma's hands clenched in her lap. Across the room, Emeka's face remained a mask, but his knuckles whitened around the edge of the table. Adekunle caught her eye briefly. For the first time since the trial began, she felt a flicker of hope. The courtroom was electric with tension. News crews crammed into the gallery, their lenses hungry for a moment that would make headlines. Adekunle stood, voice firm but calm. "Your Honor, the evidence I'm about to present links Emeka to a meeting with a known rival days before Obi's death." On the projector screen, the grainy photograph of Emeka and Chief Olabode flickered to life. Gasps echoed through the hall. Emeka shifted in his seat, his jaw set, his eyes fixed on a point far away. Adekunle continued, clicking to the next slide, the digital ledger. "Here we see transactions totaling hundreds of millions siphoned from the family company into offshore accounts, accounts tied to shell corporations traced back to Emeka's business partners." The opposing counsel objected, but the judge waved them down. "This court will hear the evidence," she said sternly. Whispers rippled through the spectators. The weight of years of family prestige was cracking under the glare of exposure, and for the first time, the air in the courtroom seemed to tilt in Chidinma's favor. When Ngozi took the stand, her voice carried the weight of old wounds. "My father was a co-founder of the family company," she began. "He believed in fairness, transparency. That's why they destroyed him." She told the court how her father had been stripped of his shares, slandered in the press, and left bankrupt, all orchestrated by the same elders now supporting Emeka. "They hide behind respectability, but their greed runs deeper than the Niger Delta oil fields," she said, her eyes locking on Madam Ifeoma. At one point, her voice trembled. Obi was different. He cared. He wanted to free himself and those he loved from this rot. And for that, I believe he paid the ultimate price. The courtroom was silent except for the steady scratch of the court clerk's pen. When Ngozi stepped down, Chidinma caught her hand and squeezed. The bond between them was no longer just forged by marriage, it was sealed by battle. By now, the evidence had become a fortress around Chidinma's case. Emeka's polished confidence began to crumble. He lashed out during cross-examination, accusing Chidinma of being a gold digger, of luring Obi away from his family for personal gain. "You have no idea what it's like to build an empire," he spat from the stand. This woman was going to destroy everything we worked for." Adekunle didn't flinch. "And what about the brake lines on Obi's car? Was that to protect the family empire as well?" The question hung in the air like a guillotine. Emeka's mouth opened, then closed. He glanced toward his lawyer, but no answer came. Outside the courtroom, his media team scrambled to control the narrative. Inside, the cracks in his story widened until they became chasms. The day of the verdict, the courtroom was so packed that even the corridor outside hummed with bodies pressing for news. The judge's voice was steady, her gaze unflinching. "This court recognizes the intent clearly expressed in the digital will of the late Obi Nkem. We find sufficient circumstantial evidence to warrant a full investigation into the circumstances of his death and the financial dealings of the family company." She paused. "The personal estate of the deceased is hereby awarded to Mrs. Chidinma Nkem and her unborn child. Control of said estate shall remain separate from the family company until further notice." The room erupted, journalists shouting questions, relatives murmuring in disbelief. Chidinma's vision blurred with tears. Adekunle's hand rested briefly on her shoulder. For the first time since that night of the phone call, she felt the smallest weight lift from her chest. Months later, the rainy season had given way to sunlit mornings. At the opening of the Obi Nkem Foundation, Chidinma stood on the small podium, her baby boy asleep in her arms. The crowd was filled with widows, community leaders, journalists, and curious onlookers. Behind her, a banner read, "Empowering Widows. Fighting Injustice." Her voice carried over the crowd. "This foundation is not just in Obi's name, it is in the name of every woman who has been silenced, sidelined, or erased. We will be the voice they can't bury." She looked to her right, Adekunle, standing with quiet pride, and Ngozi, her expression fierce and protective. The applause swelled as the ribbon was cut. Chidinma felt the warmth of the Nigerian sun on her face, a reminder that storms end and skies clear. As she stepped down from the podium, she caught sight of a reporter scribbling notes. She knew the story wasn't just hers anymore, it was a symbol. She kissed her baby's forehead and whispered, "We're free, Obi." and they'll never erase us again. The end.